Welcome back to Merc Files. We truly appreciate you joining us again as we turn our attention to a haunting mystery. A case that reminds us how quickly life can change and how someone can simply vanish without a trace. Today, we look into a missing person case that has perplexed investigators and haunted a family for decades, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions in the Green Mountain State. If you're ready to uncover the layers of this baffling mystery with us, please consider hitting that subscribe button if you haven't already. Imagine being 17, on the cusp of adulthood, with plans and a future stretching before you. You're gaining independence, working hard, and looking forward to what's next. This was Brianna Maitland in early 2004. Born October 8, 1986 in Burlington, Vermont, she grew up with her family on a farm in East Franklin. It was a rural upbringing, shaping her into someone independent and resilient, reportedly with some training in jiu-jitsu. By 2004, though, the farm life felt a bit isolating. Brianna sought more independence and wanted to be closer to friends who lived about 15 miles away. She moved out, initially staying with different friends, and by late February 2004, she was living with her childhood friend, Gillian Stout, in Sheldon, Vermont, roughly 20 miles west of Montgomery. She had also decided to pursue her GED to continue her education. However, the weeks leading up to her disappearance were not without difficulty. About 3 weeks prior, Brianna was physically attacked at a party by a former friend. While the exact motive was unclear, her father believed it stemmed from jealousy. Despite her martial arts background, reports suggest Brianna didn't fight back during the assault, which left her with a broken nose and a concussion. She filed a criminal complaint against the attacker, a case that was pending when she vanished. This incident, just weeks before she disappeared, adds another layer of concern to the events that were about to unfold. March 19, 2004 started positively for Brianna. That morning, she took her final exam to earn her GED. It was a step forward, a milestone she celebrated with her mother Kelly over lunch. Kelly described Brianna as being in good spirits, even talking about attending college. After lunch, mother and daughter spent the afternoon shopping and running errands together. As they were waiting in a checkout line at one point, something outside the store caught Brianna's attention. She briefly excused herself to go outside. When she returned to the car in the parking lot a short time later, her mother noticed a shift. Brianna seemed unnerved, shaken and agitated by whatever she had seen or experienced outside. Not wanting to pry, Kelly didn't press for details, and soon after she dropped Brianna off at Gillian Stout's home between 3:30 and 4 p.m. This was the last time Kelly Maitland would ever see her daughter. Brianna left a note for Gillian saying she would be back after her work shift at the Black Lantern Inn in Montgomery that evening. She then departed for work in her mother's green 1985 Oldsmobile sedan. Her shift ended around 11:20 p.m. Co-workers later recalled her saying she was tired and needed to get home to rest before her second job the next day in St. Albans. By all accounts from those who saw her leave, Brianna Maitland was alone in her vehicle when she pulled away from the Black Lantern Inn and drove off into the Vermont night. She was expected back at her friend's house, but she never arrived. What could have happened in that parking lot to suddenly change her demeanor? And was it connected to what came next? The mystery deepened significantly the very next day, Saturday, March 20th, 2004. In the early afternoon, a Vermont State Police trooper was dispatched to a scene on Route 118 in Richford, about a mile and a half from the Black Lantern Inn, where Brianna had worked. There, in a rural area, sat a car in a highly unusual position. It was a green 1985 Oldsmobile, backed forcefully into the side of an abandoned farmhouse, locally known as the Old Dutchburn House. The impact was hard enough to breach the wooden siding of the old building. The car's headlights were off, but the doors were unlocked. Inside, on the front seat, were 2 of Brianna's uncashed paychecks. Outside the car, near the ground, lay some loose change, a water bottle, and an unsmoked cigarette. Crucially, items like her ATM card, glasses, contact lens case, and migraine medication were left behind in the vehicle. The trooper, assuming the car had simply been abandoned by a drunk driver who might return later, had the vehicle towed to a local garage. There was nothing immediately connecting this abandoned car to a missing person. This initial assumption, and the fact that Brianna's absence wasn't immediately reported, created a critical delay. Her friend Gillian was away for the weekend and saw Brianna's note, assuming she was staying elsewhere. Brianna's mother, Kelly, wasn't notified about her daughter's car until 5 days after it was found. When Kelly finally saw a photograph of the car's strange position, she later recounted feeling instinctively revulsed, believing someone else had intentionally left it that way, not Brianna. The scene at the Old Dutchburn House was not fully processed as a potential crime scene until days after the car was discovered, potentially compromising crucial forensic evidence that might have been present. How did the car end up in that bizarre position? And what crucial information might have been lost in the hours before the investigation truly began? When Brianna was finally reported missing on Tuesday, March 23, 2004, by her mother, Kelly, who had grown increasingly worried after not hearing from her for days, the connection was finally made to the abandoned Oldsmobile. The Vermont State Police took on the investigation, though initially they seemed to favor the possibility that Brianna had simply run away. This perspective, combined with the initial delay in reporting and the assumption the car was just abandoned, meant crucial early hours were lost. The area around the Old Dutchburn House was eventually searched on foot by police and K9 units, but nothing significant was reportedly found that could point to what happened. Brianna's vehicle was later processed by the State Crime Laboratory for evidence on March 30th, over a week after it was found. While forensic analysis was conducted, the delay in securing the scene immediately after the car was discovered raised concerns about potential evidence degradation or loss. Despite the initial hesitation, law enforcement eventually concluded that foul play was the probable cause of Brianna's disappearance. The scene at the barn, with the car positioned oddly, led investigators to consider it might have been staged to look like an accident. Brianna's parents, knowing their daughter's martial arts training, publicly speculated that it would have taken more than one person to abduct her if she resisted. However, concrete evidence to support any specific scenario was difficult to come by in the early stages, adding to the mystery surrounding her vanishing. The investigation was active, but answers remained elusive, leaving a growing sense of unease in the community. As the investigation into Brianna Maitland's disappearance progressed, various individuals came forward with information, offering potential witness sightings and fueling different theories about what might have happened to her after she left work. Several people reported seeing Brianna's car or activity around the Old Dutchburn House late on the night of March 19th or in the early hours of March 20th. Reports varied, with some mentioning headlights on or a turn signal flashing on the abandoned car. A former boyfriend also recalled driving past the scene around 4 a.m. after being in Canada, recognizing the car but seeing no one. These accounts, while potentially significant, were often inconsistent and lacked definitive detail. making it difficult for investigators to piece together a clear timeline of events immediately after she left the Black Lantern Inn. One of the most prominent early theories stemmed from an anonymous tip received by the Vermont State Police, claiming Brianna was being held captive at a house occupied by two known drug dealers from New York, Ramon Ryans and Nathaniel Jackson. This tip led to a police raid on the Berkshire, Vermont property on April 15, 2004. While drugs were found, there was no sign of Brianna. Following this, law enforcement reportedly learnt from Brianna's friends that she might have experimented with hard drugs recently and knew Ryans and Jackson. Later in 2004, an anonymous affidavit provided graphic allegations claiming Brianna was murdered by Ryans over a drug debt about a week after she vanished, and her body was dismembered and disposed of. However, investigators stated they were unable to corroborate the claims in this disturbing letter. The complexity of these varied and sometimes contradictory tips and theories made the police work incredibly challenging in determining the truth of Brianna's fate. With conflicting witness accounts and unverified anonymous tips, how do investigators sift through the noise to find the critical truth in a missing person case? Over the years, the investigation into Brianna Maitland's disappearance has seen later developments and continued efforts by both law enforcement and her dedicated family, though a resolution remains elusive. In 2006, a potential sighting of a woman resembling Brianna at a casino in Atlantic City, New Jersey, briefly brought renewed interest to the case, but the woman was never positively identified as Brianna. In 2012, investigators explored a possible connection between Brianna's case and that of serial killer Israel Keyes, who is known to have been active in Vermont and New York. However, after investigation, the FBI ultimately ruled out Keyes as a suspect in Brianna's disappearance. A significant development occurred in March 2016 on the case's 12th anniversary, when investigators revealed they had recovered DNA samples from Brianna's car. While the results of these tests were not initially made public, in March 2022, the Vermont State Police announced they had found a match to DNA found near the abandoned car. They stated the DNA belonged to one of 11 people previously tested in connection with the case, and that this individual had been cooperative, but they were not identified as a suspect. This revelation, while significant from a forensic standpoint, still did not provide the answer of where Brianna is or what happened to her. Adding another strange detail to the case, the abandoned old Dutchburn house where Brianna's car was found was destroyed in a fire in July 2016. Throughout these developments, Brianna's parents, Bruce and Kelly Maitland, along with their family and friends, have tirelessly worked to keep her case in the public eye. They have created websites, maintained social media pages, organized searches, and worked with private investigators. Their relentless pursuit of answers and their advocacy have been crucial in ensuring Brianna is not forgotten. Authorities, including the Vermont State Police and the FBI, which has offered rewards for information, continue to classify this as an open, active investigation. Despite forensic advancements and renewed attention, what is it about this case that has prevented a breakthrough for so many years? The disappearance of Brianna Maitland is a case that deeply impacted her family, friends, and the quiet communities of northern Vermont. The mystery surrounding her last known movements and the bizarre discovery of her abandoned car has fueled countless discussions and theories. Despite years of investigation, witness tips, forensic analysis, and the tireless efforts of her loved ones, the fundamental questions remain unanswered. What happened to Brianna after she left work that night? Who, if anyone, was responsible? And where is she now? The case serves as a haunting reminder of the vulnerabilities that exist even in seemingly peaceful rural areas. The lack of a definitive resolution leaves a painful void for those who knew and loved Brianna, keeping the mystery of her vanishing alive. It is a cold case that investigators are still actively working on, hoping that new information or advancements in technology might one day provide the answers they desperately seek. The story of Brianna Maitland is a poignant example of a life cut short and a family's enduring search for truth and closure in the face of the unknown. For families like Brianna's, what does it truly mean to live with an unsolved disappearance? And how do they continue the fight for answers decades later? The disappearance of Brianna Maitland remains an active, unsolved case that reminds us of the importance of every lead, no matter how small. By keeping these stories alive, we hope to bring renewed attention and perhaps, one day, resolution. Thank you for joining us for this Merck Files case file. If you found this story captivating and want to help us bring more unsolved mysteries and true crime cases to your view, please make sure to like this video, share it with others, and most importantly, subscribe to our channel. Your support gives us the drive to continue this work. What are your thoughts on the perplexing details of Brianna's disappearance? Share them respectfully in the comments below. Stay curious, stay safe,